Trigger warning. This topic can be very uncomfortable for some people. Be cautious if you're listening to it. Thank you very much.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited. We have a great turnout. This is definitely one of the more interesting topics that we've had over the past year. We'll be talking about how to separate and integrate multiple personalities. That we've got a lot to cover, so I won't waste any time. My very good friend, David Barron, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. And what I want to do is make sure that this is entirely based, this is, of course, not mine, but this is based on a document written by Cline Clark. And how I came across it, well, let's put that aside for a moment. Every time I have talked about this topic, I have had at least one very well-meaning person contact me and say, this is too sensitive. And let me acknowledge that. This is very, very interesting, and it strikes people at the level of fear where they're going to lose control, because it's talking about doing things outside of in hypnosis that are outside of a person's awareness and outside of their memory. And so it creates a great deal of fear, and I think people think it can be abused, and I've made it very clear. You don't need to hypnotize somebody to abuse them. This is something I want to make clear. But yes, there could be some abuse to this, so I want to address this before we talk about it. The first thing, and let me thank Joe for being the person to send me that warning sign of like, should we do this? So if you've read this document, you could probably see why it sort of brings up red flags for people. I want to make very clear, I am not the information police. This information is out there and it can be used. And I'm not going to tell you you can't have the information, but I will also not make it necessarily easy for you to get it. Anyone who has this document, I hope you use it wisely. Anyone who asks me for this document, you're going to have to be vetted seriously and talk to me, and we'll decide whether it's there. But we're going to discuss it nonetheless. I remind people that doing hypnosis in general, and particularly something like this, does take a certain amount of skill. If you have attended any sort of classes with people who are going through and you do hypnosis, I want you to ask yourself, how many of those people actually went out and hypnotized people? Honestly, a lot of people just go to hypnosis training so they can get the knowledge and get the experience and say, I know hypnosis. Doing hypnosis and doing it well is an entirely different matter. So that's going to filter out a lot of people. To be a good hypnotist, you have to have a level of skill and a level of confidence. A good hypnotist to do a bad thing can have a lot of consequences. And I remember the story of a friend of mine who was learning all this information about hypnosis, and he managed to meet a girl in this sort of environment and started doing his hypnosis stuff, and her face went completely blank, and her next response was, what do you want me to do? And he said in that moment, I have to go to the bathroom. And he left that environment, got in his car, and ran away, and realized he has something in his hands he doesn't know exactly what to do with. I've had some experiences like that too in my youth as well. You are always firmly in the crosshairs of karma when you're doing this. And so just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. And if anyone else has a comment on this and the warning signs, just realize you're responsible, and I hope you will treat it as an adult to make the world slightly better. That's the only thing I'm here to do. Okay. Do we have any questions or comments before we go forward? All right. So let me talk about this particular document.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt. Alex raised his hand there.
Yeah. Oh, yes,
Yes,
Alex.
it's just one line from a very old comic book. You're probably familiar with Spider-Man. That
Yes.
little motto from the very first issue of Spider-Man: with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of my mentors made it a policy to say, if you're under my influence, you're also under my protection. There is a legal term that I want you to be aware of. It's called in loco parentis. And in loco parentis means literally in the place of a parent. And so if you are in any position of authority, if there's a hierarchy and you're dealing with people who are there for your influence, you have an in loco parentis responsibility to keep them safe. And again, if you choose not to, or you misuse it, you suffer the crosshairs of karma. Just be aware of that. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so this is a document, if you can see it. And how I came across it is a relatively interesting story. Someone had asked me if I had heard about it, and I didn't. And he said, well, I don't know where I can find it anymore. So he sent me a copy. And I read it, and eventually what happened was I tried to find it, and I could not find it on my laptop, any hard drive that I had. So it went away somehow, or it's hidden. I don't know. However, I started looking through all my printed material, and I did find it. And so that's what I have left. This is the author of this work is H. Cline Clark, and I did as much research as I could to find the fellow. The very last Facebook post was in March of 2011 by him, and he has an incredibly unique story. He was in the Battle of Iwo Jima, and he suffered some post-traumatic stress, and he had an experience where I forget exactly where he was, but he found himself, literally he found himself wearing a sailor's uniform, trying to find out where he was at, where he can go find the place where sailors go, and not knowing who he was. He had this complete dissociation from himself, largely due to the stress and the trauma of his activities. And so it created a very strong desire to understand it. And he does explain it in this document. And he talks about, well, he started on a very, if you found I found some of his websites on archive.org. They're really old, 2003 type format. So you can imagine they're sort of like the old GeoCities format. But he's deeply spiritually oriented, and most of his work is about spirituality and things like that. So he has a very deeply spiritual orientation as he does this. And what he developed was something that he completely considers a methodology of last resort. And it's something that he will work with people only if he's worked with them 3 times without getting any good results. What's unique about it is that he talks about dissociation, which is being able to be completely separate, have separate parts of you. This is literally a multiple personality. And how he can use that to facilitate change and healing in people. I won't go through the entirety of his process because it's fairly simple and easy to understand, but the initial part of it starts with telling his hypnosis client that this is a last resort method, and it's been very effective. And he said he's done it over 150 times. But what's required is you have to understand that you're going to be completely dissociated, which means there's going to be experiences that you're going to have as a physical body you're not going to have a conscious awareness of. And there's going to be amnesia for this. So he makes a really strong effort to educate his client on what dissociation is and what their expectation is. And that expectation, I think, is incredibly important. So let's pause and consider what it's going to take for a client to accept this. Okay, you're asking someone, I'm going to mess with your head. You're not going to remember it, but you're going to feel better afterwards. That's short. That takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of rapport. It takes a certain deal of confidence and authority in your ability and the fact that you're not going to abuse them. What I would tell anybody, if I have not used this yet on anybody, and I'm going to test it out with under the right conditions, but I'm going to always leave it an option to not do. And I'm going to also make sure, should I do it, I'm going to video record it just for my own safety. I think that's generally a good security measure as well. So once he gets the agreement, he says he starts them off with a process. If you go to YouTube, you can see this induction. It's the hand rolling induction. Okay, so everyone take your hands and start going like this. Okay, so start going like this, and what you'll find is it becomes pretty much an automatic process. Now, you can think for a moment as you do this that you can just let go and it keeps going. What you do in the induction is you tell them to go faster and faster, and so fast. Notice the feeling you're having there. Now, if you want to stop, you can stop, but you got the experience of it. What he tells them is, at this point, he goes through several processes of going faster and faster, reversing it, and making sure they respond to speeding up, reversing the direction so that it's happening automatically. He's creating very deep compliance to those two instructions. Then he tells them that it's going to continue to progress without their control or awareness. And then he asks them at the point where it's taking place, he asks them, notice as you're doing this, you are not in control of it. In fact, I'm going to find his exact words here. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, here we go. And again, this document is very few pages, so the instructions are very straightforward. The arms rotate faster when the client tries to stop. So it's now happening automatically. He then points out, your arms are moving, but you're not doing it. Isn't that right? And he waits for the client to respond. If you aren't in control of your arms, someone else is. Isn't that so? And again, he waits for a response. And he says, from that point on, you could focus attention elsewhere or even go to sleep and your arms will continue to rotate. Could you? Yes. And now he waits for affirmation. He says, I want to talk not to you, but the influence that is controlling your arms. Do you understand? And the answer is yes. Then he says, in a moment, I will say hello. When I say hello, 3 things are going to happen. First, you're going to drift into a very dreamy, drowsy slumber, deeper than you've ever known before. Second, your arms will stop rotating and let your hands gently come to a rest, comfortably in your lap. And third, the controller who is rotating your arms will open his eyes and say hello to me. Do you understand what your deep mind will do? And he waits for a confirmation. And then he says, do you understand what you are to do? And he waits for a confirmation. Then he asks, are you ready now? And a confirmation. So he waits, and then he says hello. Everything has been set up. The client, his conscious awareness goes into a deep slumber. This other part stops eventually rotating the hands and goes to lap, and the other part begins to talk and speak. From that point on, he's talking not with the client. He's talking with the subconscious mind. Now, he does a very interesting process where he talks to various parts. And he has a very interesting formula to do it. I'm simply not going to go into that because it's not what I do. What I would do in my case, looking through that thing that was rotating the hand was honestly, for the work that I do, that's the only part I need to speak to. And so I would ask the subconscious mind, say for a smoker, I would ask the subconscious mind, you've created this habit of smoking, haven't you? Yes. Do you understand that client wants to stop? Yes. Do you understand that this is in his best interest? Yes. And just ask for an agreement to stop. And if I get an agreement, then the agreement's set, and then you can go through the exduction. Now, I could imagine this, and again, I've yet to test it, happening in less than 12 minutes, probably even 10. And the client would have no awareness of it. So I want you to think about this. Those of you who've had this document and have read it, I'd like to get some of your feedback. Questions, comments. Alex, you had mentioned it. Graham, you read it. What sort of thoughts? Jeremy, did you get to read it? Okay. Alex,
Okay.
yes.
Yes. I noticed that when Mr. Clark wrote this article here, essentially he was discovering for the first time something which, which ultimately I've been discovering over the last, how long is it now? I'd say about 2011. I'd used hypnosis for a while before that, but 2011 was the first time I began learning about hypnotic amnesia, that I could go into a person's mind and I could talk to that part of them that wanted to be smoke free or something like that.
Mhm.
It was usually the part of them that actually smoked, the part of them that had the program for taking the cigarette out of the pack, lighting up, all that sort of stuff. And basically, I was able to talk to that part of them. And I do believe I read a book somewhere about parts integration,
Mhm.
written by somebody not too close from the screen here. And basically, I managed to find a way of capping off the instruction I'd given to that part, which was now a non-smoking part, as it were. I gave them something else that they could do, for example, so that they could still feel that they were contributing to the health of the individual, the patient. So instead of just saying, sort of waving the cross in the air, saying, thou art banished, foul Satan, or some stupid stuff like that, I actually gave them something else to do so that they could feel that dopamine rush, that they're still part of something greater. They're still part of the main person.
Yeah.
And cap that off so that the conscious mind did not pick at it like a scab under a bandage. I found a way of capping off that entire part of the discussion with that piece of the patient, with hypnotic amnesia, so it was like a memory cap. And but when I got to see that Arnie movie, Total Recall, I was going, yep, yep, been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now the interesting thing about what Cline Clark does is that part that's simply moving the arms simply
Mm-hmm.
becomes a mediator
Yeah,
between all the other parts. And
yeah,
during the process, you have this conference of parts that come to an agreement and essentially unify and agree and come together. And once again, he has no conscious memory of it, but they
yeah.
feel like a single person. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
My
Excellent.
pleasure.
All right. Any other questions or observations?
Mark had a comment. I look. Parts of it remind me of soul fragmentation in shamanism and spiritual releasement therapy, especially how he used it in reference to the idea of possession.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly like the whole idea of integrating the parts into an ecological whole self. Thank you, Mark.
That's a very good observation. One thing that I think is important to point out is the whole idea of ecology, which you're not just working with a part. You can solve a problem, but create a neurosis in that problem, and that's not ecological. So the emphasis here is making sure the whole being and all of its parts are in agreement and working together. So very good point. Yes, Keith.
So you had said that this was for, this was used sometimes in a fourth session where the first three didn't seem productive. Um, but it seems like this is kind of like pretty out there. Like I would expect somebody for whom things aren't productive yet, that this is like you're going to meet even more resistance with this kind of thing. Are there certain things you're looking out for in a person that you think this might go over well without too much resistance?
The first thing that comes to mind is you should have some good response in the previous session. So they should be good hypnosis subjects and had some good response. I mean, for me, when I'm working with somebody, I have a very measurable result. They want a specific result. Like, for example, they want to not have anxiety in certain situations. They want to quit smoking. That's very easy, relatively easy to do without all of this. And I think what Cline Clark was experiencing with people who had much deeper, almost spiritual injuries that he wasn't able to completely resolve that particular way. Not something I feel I've come across, or I don't think I'd feel necessarily competent or experienced enough to deal with. But that's the first thing that comes to mind. I hope
That
does
does
that
clear it
answer your
up.
question? Okay.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much. Good question, Keenan.
Jeremy, I noticed you were off mute for a second. Did you have a comment, question, observation?
Yeah, thank you. I was just when I read this, I was like, oh man. You know, my brain kind of went to the dark. I'm like, oh, this in the wrong hands is scary,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So like as I'm starting to learn hypnosis myself, like I'm still like getting certified and all that. So I'm a young student in this. It's like I would need, in order to feel comfortable doing this, I would need to be a lot of hours underneath me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like when I got to the bottom, I started talking about how Charles Manson like did this technique under
Mm-hmm.
LSD. Like it got me thinking about CIA
Yeah.
and having people become assassins and like
All right.
snapping them out of it and stuff like that, and they don't even know they're doing what they're doing. It's like it's creepy.
Well, I mean, yeah, let's point out George Estabrook was a famous hypnotist who worked for the CIA.
Right.
And he wrote in his documents, it is entirely possible to create an alternate personality within someone who can carry out dangerous missions without their under memory of what's going on. And again, if you're dealing, you won't have to do this as a hypnotherapist, okay?
Right.
Unless you're commissioned by a government agency of some sort.
Right.
But I remind people to do this. You have to ensure their protection. If you wanted to try it, the environment I would encourage you to do it in is a group environment. So everyone is seeing what's happening. Everyone can report back. You'll have one subject. They'll know they're safe because they're being observed, and you have to be on your best interest because you're being observed. So that's a good environment to test it out on. Okay.
Yeah, good point. Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Well, Jeremy, yeah, I had some of the same reservations. I left a message for David last night. It's like,
Oh, you were sweating. I mean, my God, it was like, do not. This is. I'm cautious. Yeah, it was a message that had dread.
Well, yeah, and one of my other fears is, it's actually not the best advertisement for clinical hypnosis, unless people have a total understanding there. And, of course, I wouldn't worry about you. David obviously knows your intent, and the intent is what we're looking for. But, I have the Esther Brooks books here, and I find it's funny how he kind of removed himself from the argument. I'll read it to you guys because I find it very humorous. For any amateur, such attempts would only lead to prison. Moreover, our police are quite familiar with everything written in this book and could detect a crime involving hypnotism quite as readily as any other. Now, he was making these claims in the 1940s. It was bullshit then, and it still is. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I read the Ellipsis manual, Chase Hughes, and he was talking about like people having zero recollection of an assassination attempt. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, this doesn't go out to just those people who are interested in this. This goes out to anyone who's doing hypnosis. If you're influencing somebody, you have a level of control that can be abused, regardless if it's hypnosis. The crosshairs of karma are always on you when you have that. And I want to remind you about that obligation. You have an in loco parentis obligation. You have to keep them as safe as you would any child you care about. So I'll repeat that as many times as is necessary. All right. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Sharon.
So, aside from the context that he was working with people who he knew were dissociated from their personalities, this doesn't seem all that different from the different kinds of parts mediation and parts integration we would do normally with our clients.
Very true. The only difference is the degree of separation between the parts. Connie Ray Andreas has what's it called?
Core transformation.
Core transformation. It's an awesome parts therapy, and it's all done conversationally. So yeah, this is like you can use Connie Ray Andreas's process, or you can use the sledgehammer like this one. You're going to get the same results done.
Right. Yeah, I learned it from Roy Hunter, who very much about pulling forth the different parts and mediating or voice dialogue from years ago. Yeah, interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great question. All right. Anyone else have any questions, comments, or observations?
I have a quick question for you.
Yes. Tyrone.
Yes, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So I haven't had a chance to read the whole document. I read maybe about a third of it. Would it be safe to say that this is a more intricate, sophisticated, therapeutic version of the parts pattern that you described in your book, Mind Control Language Patterns?
Yeah. Yeah, it very much is. It's yeah, I mean, there's a whole spectrum you can call hypnosis. And it's very conversational. There's the other spectrum where the eyes are closed and people are totally disassociated. The process is the same. This is way on that other end.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tyrone. That was a good question. All right.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments? Okay.
I do kind of love that arm rolling induction.
I've got to use it more often.
Yeah,
You use it?
I haven't used it, but now I'm going to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did it on myself and I freaked myself out. It's that
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, just
Okay. Yes, Graham.
one thought I had was if you was to go down into like a lot of the more therapeutic side of it and things like that with proper instruction, then something like that I think would probably best be started off bit by bit, like as you demonstrated at the start with the arm rolling, and then saying, I want to speak to the person who's rolling your arm and use that as a metaphor for the subconscious. And, use that as your starting point so that you can access the subconscious to work with things like habit change and things like that. And then as you get more and more hours and your sphere of competence widens, and if you do decide, to go down the more clinical route, working with mental health professionals, then you could then start probably under clinical supervision, say, right, how about this as a therapeutic method, until
that's exactly how I would do it. Yeah, absolutely. Start with just talk to this. I mean, all of my stuff, you've read my manual, all my stuff is I just talk to the subconscious mind, not parts within it, but the subconscious mind. So it's a perfect start. The perfect start. Yeah. Yes, Hammer.
A couple of questions. Yes.
This is fascinating. This is fascinating stuff here about parts. That's one thing I got from reading your book, Mind Control Language Patterns, is that when you name something, you make it real, and when you describe it, it comes alive. The patterns, the fascination pattern that you used in your book, where you talk about the part of you that becomes fascinated as you close off your awareness to the world around you. It really did suck me right into
good
to that situation. It's pretty awesome.
That's excellent. And let me give credit for that quote. As you name something, it becomes real. As you describe it, it comes alive. I give credit. I believe I heard that from Mark Cunningham, and who knows where he heard it from, but let's give him some credit.
Well, there's a character.
Yeah, indeed.
Good friends.
Thank you, Hammer.
Okay.
I see someone came off mute. I don't know.
Graham?
Okay.
Graham, Dwayne?
The old one. Oh,
Yep.
is that Dwayne? I don't know.
Dwayne.
Oh, Dwayne.
It is an almost disturbingly smooth and rapid way to bring someone into dissociation. To echo those who are concerned, it's smoother than Chase Hughes' method in the ellipsis manual, I would say.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree, and I understand people's caution, so I go back to the warning. Know
in
that
loco parentis, wise.
In loco parentis, or the crosshairs of karma are upon you, so beware. Thank you, Dwayne. Okay. All right, here we go.
Oh, I'm glad Alex put that little thing up about confusion inductions from last week, because 2 days afterwards, as I was driving along in the car, that Alanis Morissette One Hand in My Pocket song came on, and I thought, this is some really good source material for writing confusions.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Ironic.
Anyone else? Thank you, Alex. Okay. Okay. I think it's a good place. If anyone else has anything else, I think it's a good place to wrap it up. I really appreciate you guys contributing to this. And again, you have a tool here that should be used appropriately and not as a weapon. Thank you. And again, you've taken some time to be here. You've made a sacrifice here, not somewhere else. And so I want to thank you for making that sacrifice. Joe, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. Again, thank you everyone for not just showing up, but for participating. This is definitely, I think, one of the best ones we've had so far. So I encourage and invite all of you to continue to join us. This topic here, if it does lead to more questions, please email them in. We may add on to this in the future. Nothing left to say, but thank you and have a wonderful weekend. Look forward to seeing you real soon.
Thanks very much for putting this on for us tonight. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Graham.
Bye, everyone.
Jeremy,
Take care.
great.
Thank you very
Hammer.
much.
Okay,
Take
have a
care.
great weekend, everybody.
So
Good
long,
night.
folks.